everyone, Ken here with Ken's Creations and Product Reviews. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the new Silhouette Curio. We're going to see what comes in the box, how to set this machine up, the new features of this machine, and we'll take a quick look at the software changes in Silhouette Studio. Let's first take a look at what you will get in the box. In the box, you will find your Silhouette Curio cutting machine, the blade with ratchet cap, a fine and wide embossing tip, an 8.5 by 6 base with 3 platforms, 1 embossing mat, 1 cutting mat, material fasteners, replacement snaps, print and emboss squares, Silhouette software, a 1-month subscription to the Silhouette online store, an AC adapter and power cable, and your USB cable. To get your Silhouette Curio ready for its first cut and emboss, you will need to install the Silhouette Studio software. Please keep in mind the software that comes in some boxes is version 3.4. This software is already outdated, so I highly recommend downloading the current software from silhouetteamerica.com versus installing the software that came with your machine. This will ensure you have the most up-to-date software to use with your new Silhouette Curio. Now that our software is installed and our machine is hooked up, let's take a closer look at the machine and the new capabilities. On the side of the machine, where we hooked up our USB and power, you have 3 buttons. You have your power button, you have the load and unload platform option, and a pause button if you need to stop your project. Before we take a closer look at the Silhouette Curio cutting machine, I wanted to make a couple of things very clear. A lot of people want to know, is the Silhouette Curio a replacement for the Portrait or Cameo? It is not. It's actually considered a companion tool to these machines, and there is very important reasons why this is. The Curio does not allow for matless cutting, and you're not able to cut rolled materials like your vinyl. Also, the Cameo boasts a 12-inch cutting width, whereas the Curio provides a maximum 8.5 by 12-inch cutting surface. So if the Curio is a companion tool to the Cameo and Portrait, why would someone want it? Well, the Curio allows for you to do metal and foil stippling, metal etching. On the inside of the machine, you will notice it has dual carriage technology. You'll be able to emboss, score and emboss, print and emboss. You'll also be able to use deep cut blade, allowing you to cut leather, foil, foams, and more. A new feature is also the ability to use thicker materials as a project surface. Now, there has been some confusion around this. You would be able to use 5mm materials inside your Silhouette Curio, but you will not be able to cut them. Opening your Silhouette Curio, you will definitely see the differences between the Curio and the Portrait and Cameo. The first thing and most important thing you'll notice is the workspace. The workspace on the Curio is a maximum workspace of 8.5 by 12 inches. In order to maximize that though, you will need to buy the large base, which is sold separately. The standard base that comes with the Curio provides a maximum workspace of 8.5 by 6 inches. This was a huge disappointment to me because I like having a full 12 inches to do all of my creative work. Now, will the Curio have the print and cut capability? It will. It includes an optic scanner that can read and utilize registration marks for print and cut jobs. It also will have the ability to use the popular pick scan technology. In order to use this though, you will need to purchase the Curio pick scan mat to use this feature. Now, we already know what this machine can do with embossing and stippling. But what materials can you use it with? You will be able to use fabric with your Curio. Just make sure you use a fabric stabilizer. And you'll be able to etch with this machine. You can etch with soft metal surfaces such as aluminum, copper, and brass. And you'll be able to use the stippling function, which will provide a creative design using a series of dots. Now, the maximum cutting force of the Curio was a little disappointing to me. It's actually the same as the Silhouette Cameo for 210 grams per force cutting pressure. What this means is you're not going to get any more of pressure than you would with your Silhouette Cameo. I was hoping the Curio, with all of these great technology and features, would provide more of a force than your Silhouette Cameo. Now, with this machine will come a wide variety of different tools that you can use in the dual carriage on your Curio. You'll also be able to use the deep cut blade, the stippling tool, the etching tool, and there's even a spot on the machine to store all your different tools. Now, Silhouette has announced that you should not use these tools with your Cameo or Portrait, and it is just designed for the Curio. However, it does appear that they will fit in your Cameo and Portrait. Now, you will have a lot of different surfaces that can be embossed. According to Silhouette, the only one that you will work 100% of the time is their score embossed paper, which is also an additional purchase. Also, please note that at time of filming, I'm only able to review the embossed feature. The Curio stippling and etching tool, deep cut blade, and pick scan mat were not released in time for filming, and I will not be able to review these features. Now let's take a quick look at the updates in Silhouette Studio in order for you to use your Silhouette Curio. Make sure you update your software either by using the CD that came with your package or by going to silhouetteamerica.com. Once you've updated your software, you're going to see two new options up in the right-hand corner. The first one being your emboss window, and the second one being the stipple window. Both of these options will require a Silhouette Curio, and if you do not have a Silhouette Curio, unfortunately you won't be able to use them. And the reason why is the very first time you open this window, it is going to require you to have your Silhouette Curio plugged in order to use the features. Now that my Silhouette Curio is plugged into my computer, we're ready to start the design. Now keep in mind, your Silhouette Studio does not automatically adjust your mat size based on what machine is plugged in, so we need to do those steps. Go to your page setting window. In this drop-down box, adjust to the automatic option, which should register what connected cutter you have. So in this case, it's the Curio. Now that we have our page set up, we also need to let Silhouette Studio know what mat we're using. That will be down here in the cutting mat option. And you're going to see 4 different options for the Curio. You have 2 cut options and 2 emboss options. In this demonstration, we're going to be using the 8.5 by 6 emboss mat. We're going to select that, and now we are ready to design with our Silhouette Curio. Now, I want to explain the difference between deboss and emboss when using your Silhouette Curio. Deboss is going to give you a depressed look or an imprinted look. And in order for the Curio to achieve this, you'll put your material face up onto the Curio mat and your embossing tip will simply deboss into your material. Emboss, which is probably what most people are used to, gives you the raised design. Some people call it hills and valleys. And in order for the Curio to do that, you're going to place your material face down onto the Curio mat. Your page will be flipped horizontally when set to the Curio so that the entire page is mirrored. Now for me, this was really frustrating because it mirrors the entire page. And I never got it to line up. In fact, in the 2 weeks, I've never been able to achieve desired results with this because it mirrored the entire page and then it didn't line up onto my mat. Thus what it did, it ruined my embossing mat by embossing off of my paper onto the mat because I couldn't get it to line up from what I saw on the screen to what it did with the machine. Let's start with deboss and go to the emboss deboss option. This will fill your shape with a pattern that allows you to emboss or deboss onto your material. If I choose parallel lines, you'll see my dog bone over here is filled with a whole bunch of parallel lines. and I can change my spacing to be either minimal or great and fill in the shape. What's great about this is if you want to emboss or deboss an entire shape, if you change your spacing as low as it will go, it almost gives that illusion that the entire shape is filled in, and then your embossing tool, in very fine lines, will emboss this entire shape. You also have an angle option that will change the angle of your embossing or debossing lines. What if we just want to add an emboss line or score line to our project? The score and emboss option will achieve this. In here you have a couple of options that you will need to tell the Silhouette Curio, like if you're using your fine embossing tip or your wide embossing tip. You have this down arrow that will allow you to tell the Curio how many passes you would like to take within the outside line. If we were to set this at 1 using our fine tip, hit apply score and emboss line, you'll see this faint blue line along this bone that the Curio will emboss. The last feature in the emboss window is print and emboss. You're more than welcome to follow the link down below, which will take you to a Silhouette America video on how to use the print and emboss and the results it will give you. It is a 3-step process to achieve this. In step 1, you would place your print design on your screen. You would add any embossing looks that you would like around your image. We would add our registration marks just like we would with our Cameo. And then we can print this on our home printer. We would move on to step 2 by placing the printed image face up on the Curio cutting mat and using the blade to cut around the registration marks, which leads you to step 3. You'll flip the page over horizontally and you'll apply the small black backings that came in your box under the cutout registration mark holes. Place the printed page face down onto the Curio embossing mat, and then you'll use the embossing tool to emboss the image. So if you're confused, I get it, I was confused at first. I highly recommend watching the video down below by Silhouette America, and it will clear up a little bit of the confusion. It's now time for me to test the Silhouette Curio on its embossing capabilities. In order to do that, I do need to set up my cut settings to make sure everything is just perfect. You'll see some changes in your cut settings when you go there because this system now has the dual carriage technology. So you have tool 1 and tool 2. So you need to justify each layer what you're using and what tool you'll be using. Because of this, it's much easier in my opinion to use the advanced features. Now I would be able to distinguish what each line color is doing. So my blue, let's say I want emboss. So I would select this tool first, and I need to tell the Curio what tool it's using. Am I using the blue circle side or the red circle side? So that's really important because whatever you determine here is going to determine what side of the dual carriage it's going to use. Once I've distinguished that, I can go down and say, what am I using for my material? In this case, I am using the score and emboss paper. Down below, based on what material I chose, Silhouette tells me I should be using my embossing tool for that. It also lets me know what platforms. Now, if you do not see the platforms in your Silhouette Studio, make sure to update your software. Part of the original version that came in your box might be an older version that did not include the platform recommendations. So update your software if you don't see this. It does tell me I need to use all 5 platforms, so I'm going to use 2, 2, and 1 here and follow everything exactly. Now that I know what emboss I would want, if I was going to score, I would go to my score. Now I know that I have my embossing tool in the blue circle, so I would need to put my ratchet blade in the red circle. I'm still using the score and emboss paper, and it's letting me know that I would use my standard ratchet blade, and it automatically adjusts my settings. Setting up your platform is quite easy. If you need to make any adjustments to your blade, you will do so on the platform versus the machine as we would on the Cameo. We'll be using both the narrow and wide embossing tips, and we will load all of our platforms onto our tray using these claps. If these do break, they have given you extra for replacement. All of your platforms are numbered according to what the Silhouette Studio recommends. We will start with 2, add another 2, 1, and finish with our embossing mat on the top. We will secure all the clasps down to make sure nothing moves during our process. Now the embossing mat is a little bit flimsy and does tear easily, so use caution when using this mat. pull the platform tray out and then go ahead and put your tool into tool 1 or 2. Load the platform by going past the notch right where the screw is and hit load platform. Follow the instructions in Silhouette Studio on what blade to use during this process. Please note this machine is just as loud as your Silhouette Cameo, so if noise is an issue for you, keep that in mind when buying this machine. Let's take a look at the results using the fine embossing tip. This did a great job on the Curio. It showed up very good on the vellum and you can see it pretty clearly. I would use this for simple tasks and I'm pretty happy with these results for a simple emboss. Now the wide embossing tip, I did not get as good as results. On the left, you'll see the wide embossing tip. On the right is the fine embossing tip. And no matter if I changed my settings or what I did, I could not get my wide embossing tip to give me good results. I did some research with some other Silhouette blogs and it seemed they were getting the same results as I was using the wide embossing tip. Hopefully, upon more research and using this machine, I will get better results using that wide embossing tip. Now, of course, I'm probably going to be using this tool mostly with paper, and here is the embossing using the fine embossing on paper. Even though it embossed, it didn't give me those great results I was looking for. The Silhouette Curio has me concerned for a couple of reasons. Number one, the price. At $249.99, this is an expensive companion to your Silhouette Cameo. I do realize that it does allow for you to use 2 tools at once, and you'll be able to use a deep cut blade. But let's be honest, the Silhouette Curio and Cameo have the same cutting force, so you won't be able to cut thicker materials. You will be able to etch, stipple, and emboss. However, there are third-party tools on the market that allow you to do all of this currently with your Cameo. And when it came to the software, it was very confusing and cumbersome even to do basic embossing features, and the results were not dramatic enough for me compared to a traditional embossing machine that's going to give you much more dramatic results, better peaks and valleys, and a better embossed look on your projects. And let's be honest,